Generating traffic and sales can be a challenge for online merchants. But selling on the Walmart Marketplace puts your products in front of millions of customers who shop on Walmart.com. And right now, sellers who join Walmart Marketplace can save up to 50% on referral and fulfillment fees for the first 90 days. So get started today. Head over to marketplace.walmart.com/savings. That's marketplace.walmart.com/savings.
Welcome to E-Commerce Conversations, a podcast by Practical E-Commerce.
What is going on, Internet? Eric Van Holt's back again with another E-Commerce Conversations. I hope all's going well on the other side of the Internet. On the other side of the Internet from me, Steve. Welcome, man.
What's up, man? What's funny is we were just chatting a couple minutes ago and your voice was not as dynamic as it was just now.
You know, I only bring the energy for like the first 2 minutes, and after that, I just kind of shut up. If you're a longtime listener to E-Commerce Conversations, you know Steve. He is the founder of My Wife Quit Her Job, as well as Bumblebee Linens, right?
Bumblebee Linens. That's correct. Handkerchiefs and linens.
And not currently, but a future author.
Future author. Actually, you know what? I just handed in the final draft 2 days ago.
Shut the front door. What is that? I mean, I'm going to bring you back on the show when people are ready to buy the book. Can we talk about it now, or?
We can if you want. What do you want to know about?
Well, what the hell is the book about? Why are you writing a book?
Okay, let's save that for a separate conversation. I'll give the title, though. The title is called The Family First Entrepreneur.
Okay. Because this is what I want to talk about with you. A lot of the shows we talk about business. If you want to learn more about Steve's business, I recommend you listen to the previous podcast episode he did. What I want to talk about is kind of how Steve and I have decided to build our businesses, which is prioritizing life, right? Or how do you do it? Do you prioritize family? Like, what's your mindset behind this?
I prioritize time and then people who I want to be hanging out with. People like yourself. I wish we hung out more often, Eric, but we don't live in the same place.
We don't.
I don't make decisions based on money anymore unless that money can somehow be invested into something that will eventually lead to, or pretty in the short term, lead to more time.
Yeah.
Which is actually rarely the case. But
you know, this is a problem that I've been facing as I think you and I share similar mindsets on money. You're a child of immigrants, right?
Yes.
So I'm like second generation. My grandparents were immigrants. So there was a lot of kind of like frugality in my household. And, you know, subsequently, a lot of my youth was about not spending money. And for me personally, I've kind of like struggled with having money and then feeling guilty about spending that. Do you struggle with that too?
Hey, when we first got on here, you noticed that my Zoom account isn't in my name. It's because I share a Zoom account. So I'll let you be the judge of that. I share a freaking Zoom account.
I mean, like, do you not see that as a burden at all at this point in your life? And for the listeners who don't know, Steve is wildly successful by all measures of success. You know, he's got plenty of time. He's got a lovely wife and children. He's got great businesses, more than one businesses. He's an accomplished author. But he has very high demands that he's got to meet in terms of pleasing his mother, right?
Yes. Is that what we're talking about today? Is this like a psychological lesson here? Here's my philosophy on just money and frugality. For me, being frugal and spending less is good for my peace of mind, right? Because I want to know that if anything were to just stop, then I could still live without even thinking about it, right? And so that's why I keep expenses low. I try not to spend a lot of money or increase my lifestyle, I should say, because that stuff doesn't make me happy per se. Like buying stuff doesn't make me happy. I'll spend money on experiences, but not stuff. And I hate recurring expenses because, again, that stuff keeps me up at night. Recurring expenses.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like if you hit a certain amount of money in your bank account or in your savings or whatever, that all of a sudden that changes, where you feel like I now have enough money to last my whole life based on how I'm currently spending and how I project my expenses to rise over time?
You know what's funny about that is I had this talk with a buddy of mine. I don't think there's a number for that. So I look at my net worth on kind of like a regular basis, and I need to see it going up and to the right. If it were to go down, that would just psychologically make me worried, even though I'd have still plenty of money. I'm curious how it works for you.
Yeah, I think of things in terms of how long can I survive being canceled?
Actually, of both of us, you probably have a greater risk of getting canceled, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
I tend to go on these weird rants from time to time. And I can be canceled for 15 years, Steve, is my current. So I'm 41 years old. The goal is 60 years that I could be canceled, which essentially means I can say whatever I want. So right now you're getting like the things that I can say that will cancel me up to 15 years, but the things that I say that would get me canceled, beyond that, I still don't say publicly.
So that's how my mind works. I mean, to be honest with you, we have plenty of money in the bank and we can cover our kids' college and we don't spend much. Again, that just all goes back to peace of mind, right? Our whole family spends maybe $150,000 a year. And actually, it's probably less this year because my daughter's no longer in private school. She's back in public school. So, I mean, to make like $100,000, that's actually not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I mean, that's what most people do. I think it's just kind of that parachute that you start to build up that really does free a lot of burden from the mind. Living paycheck to paycheck on 100K is pretty stressful, but if you're able to save, like 2/3 that or a significant chunk beyond that amount, it definitely, I don't know, for me is very freeing because I don't have a mortgage, I don't have any car payments. I do the same thing. Like our sprinkler system here was ended up being like $750 because we ran it 3 days instead of 2 days or whatever. And it's nice to be like, I can handle that, because I don't have this monthly lifestyle. But I also hang out with people who leverage money all the time. Do you ever battle that where it's like, well, I could get a loan very cheaply and have better return in my investments? Or are you more of like the debt-free kind of living guy?
I'm kind of a debt-free liver, but I've recently started investing in companies because I enjoy that. We have a mutual friend, Bill D'Alessandro. He's like the opposite of me, I would say. He's usually pretty heavily leveraged. I actually haven't spoken to him recently, but he's usually pretty heavily leveraged, and I couldn't live like that. I just couldn't.
What do you think it is? What do you think it is the mindset for someone or people like us that hate being in debt versus someone who recognizes the power of time, money, power, essentially, and the power of leveraging money for growth?
I think it just depends on, what your risk tolerance is. It's funny. I listen to a lot of Robert Kiyosaki now. And like in one of these episodes, he was just talking about, when you borrow money, you don't have to pay any taxes. And as long as you make enough with that money to cover the interest payment, it's like free money, essentially. Right. And that got me thinking, but still, I think when the going is good, that works well. But if there is like a downturn or a major downturn or some catastrophic event, I think all that stuff could go into the toilet. So when you're leveraged, things are good when they're good, but when they're not, just a downside. It's like more like a roller coaster ride. I prefer my life to be more, steady in terms of financials, at least.
The other thing is like you talked about it earlier. You live on 100, 150K a year. Do you think it kind of ties back to just low needs or desires for material possessions?
I think that's the case. I mean, stuff doesn't make me happy. What makes me happier actually is having meals with the family all together or going out to nice restaurants with my wife, that sort of thing. I mean, look at me. I wish I could show you my office here, but like my equipment's pretty crappy. I'm not a gearhead, even though everyone thinks I am since I'm in high tech. I used to be in high tech.
Well, it's kind of funny, but even if you were a gearhead, like that is a very small percentage. Like if I bought the nicest mics and stuff, I'm talking like $2,000. When you compare it to people who buy private jets and helicopters and like the hedonistic, what is this, like vision or pathway, it never ends. Like Steve Jobs was building a $40 million yacht when he died. Like, I don't know. To me, it seems like I want to build and grow because I enjoy that. but not at the expense of being able to sleep well at night. Like my head hits the pillow and I'm out. Are you the same way?
Yeah, I sleep fine at night. Actually, once upon a time, I was a day trader. I don't know if anyone knows this.
I didn't know that.
And I could not sleep at night because I'd wake up first thing right before the market, look at the pre-market trading. I was like, I can't live life like this. I was doing okay, maybe not because of my intelligence, because when I was doing it, the market was going up, right? And so every day it felt good. But, there's always down days in any up market, and I just couldn't sleep at night. And I was like, I can't do that anymore.
Have you experienced much anxiety and stress over the years that you've had to overcome that? Or have you always, with the exception of the day trade process, I guess going back to your entrepreneur time or e-commerce time, walk me through what that's looked like and how you've been able to battle anxiety. Because I feel like this job is just super stressful and not everyone has that ability to sleep well at night.
There are two major periods where I had stress. The first period was when I was trying to hit 7 figures with my business, and I went all out and just to hit this stupid number. My wife and I, we were fighting all the time, and our marriage, I wouldn't say it was like completely on the rocks, but like things weren't good, let's just say. Like we were kind of estranged from each other. We just talked about business every time. We'd go out to nice restaurants for our anniversary, and we just talked business the whole time. Our vacation was to China to visit a Chinese factory. That was our couple's getaway. So that was a stressful period, mainly because my wife and I were fighting all the time, just so I could hit some stupid number, so I could say I had a 7-figure business. The second period of stress was during COVID. We sell items catering to weddings. A lot of our customers are airlines and hotels. And during that period, obviously, none of that was happening. So I think it was like March 23rd, our business dropped like 70% overnight. And that was stressful mainly because we had employees and we had like these rent checks that we'd still have to. Like rent where I live is really expensive for a warehouse space. And fortunately, we recovered from that. But one thing, so we actually just recently bought our own building. And
that was before or after COVID?
No, this just happened literally like last month.
Okay.
Because they were about to jack up our rent again. And it was just getting to the point where like that rent or those expenses were just kind of making me worried in general, right? So now that we own our own building, we can run our business so cheaply that like even if the business were to just dry up, wouldn't be a big deal. So that's like an example of peace of mind for me.
Yeah, I have the same thing where, Beard Brand is not leveraged. We don't have investors. I do want to hit, I haven't quite hit it yet. I do want to hit the 8-figure mark. But again, not so much at the expense of my happiness. So it is like that constant reminder that we have it well. And it always goes back to like if the rug gets pulled out from under you, could always get it back down to a 1 or 2 person employee business, and that's kind of the nice thing about not being, leveraged to the max and not having these outside parties not manipulating your business, but requiring it. Now, granted, I do have a lease and things like that, but I don't know. I just figured it's probably easier to walk away from a lease and say, sorry, man. But
yeah, I know for me, and I've lived through, I think, 3 downturns now in my life, right? Things are always good until they're not. And maybe it's just because I'm old now, but, I just don't need that kind of stress.
You talked a little bit earlier about the switch from your daughter going from private school to public school. This is definitely not quite an e-commerce thing, but I'm a big believer in not necessarily private schools, but schools that are not teacher-led, kind of project-based schools. Walk me through that decision. I assume it was initiated by your daughter wanting something different, but...
Actually, it was not.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You're talking about the private school?
Yeah, going from private to public.
Oh, going from private to public. Okay, so I'm a public school kid. We bought this house in this neighborhood because the schools were so good. I thought you were going to ask me the opposite direction.
No, I don't think any kid should be in public schools. I think public schools are terrible.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Where I grew up, the public schools were fantastic. I guess it just depends on where you are. In California, the public schools aren't as good.
Yeah.
As where I grew up. In fact, we considered moving back to Maryland where the schools are so good. Okay, so the decision why to move public, that was always going to be the case. Mainly because we wanted our daughter to be in a school where there's a lot of kids. I think like the social aspects are different. I wanted like sports teams and whatnot. when she was in private school, there wasn't really sports. Everything was really small. Like her whole entire class, I think, was like 30 people, like her whole grade, right? And I don't know. I think the social aspects are pretty important.
You think it's, I mean, I'll challenge you on this, but
Okay.
you think it's natural to be around hundreds of people who are your exact same age? Like, do you think that's preparing you for life?
Natural? I think the more different types of people that you encounter, the better equipped you'll be to handle the different personalities that you'll meet. It's not a question of age, really.
Right. But you think you can only get that in public schools?
No, but it's a convenient way, I should say.
Yeah.
To get it, right?
So for anyone who's listening to this, not for public schools, I apologize. But the school that we put our daughter in has like no teachers. And what they have instead are guides. So they don't tell you what to learn at all. And it's kind of setting up an environment that allows the student to discover the answers on their own. So rather than go into like an authority figure and it's like, what is 2 + 2? And they tell you 4, and they work on memorization. It's them seeking out the information, kind of learning from themselves. So my disdain isn't necessarily public versus private. It's more of this like authoritarian model, which happens both in some private schools and public schools as well. So I don't want to make the distinction that it's only a public school thing.
We have schools like that here too. I think it all depends on your kid's personality.
Yeah.
I've had friends who sent their kids to schools like that where the kid just does nothing. Whereas if they're self-driven, then it's fantastic because you can cover a lot more than in a traditional school curriculum.
Yeah. Why do you think that they do nothing though?
I don't know. I think everyone's just wired a little differently.
Yeah. Yeah, there's probably truth to that. So you have your podcast, you have your e-commerce business, and you write a friggin' book. How do you do that?
Okay, so I'll tell you my schedule.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So number one, the e-commerce store is run by my wife and I. And we have both agreed not to try to put the pedal to the metal on that, right? Because whenever it grows too quickly, I think any business, when you grow too fast, it's stressful, right? So what I do now is I actually use that store as a laboratory. Like as part of running my other things, all these companies want to sell me their tools and whatnot, and I just try them on my own store and I report on the results. So that feeds the content for my other stuff. So my typical day is usually Sunday, I'll pump out an article. And then on Monday...
You write the article.
Well, actually, I stopped. I have a writer and an editor now, and I just add in my own personality at the very end. Here's why I started doing that. Ever since Google changed their algorithm in the past couple of years, they pretty much have made it so that writing is boring, right? Google's a search engine. They just want the answer. So if you provide more than just the answer, that could hurt you. So let's say you ask me like, how much money can an e-commerce store generate? They just want like a 1-sentence answer that covers that. And if you were to tell a story after that, so let's say I told a story about like my kids or whatnot, Google will be confused. They'll be like, why are you telling a story about the kid? What does this have to do with the answer? And that could actually hurt your article. So now that you're not allowed to write, I shouldn't say you're not allowed to, but ever since I started writing more direct answers, my search traffic has gone up, right? So that's telling me that writing is no longer fun for me. It sucked out all the life out of my writing. So that's why I hired a writer. Where I express my creativity now a little bit more.
Do they come up with the topics, or you tell them what to write about?
Oh, no, I have the topics.
Okay. So
and they're all researched.
Yeah. When do you spend that time?
Probably on Mondays. Mondays is the day where I do most of my work.
Okay.
And that's pretty easy, right? I just take a tool like Ahrefs and I just look at, what my competitors are writing about, and I just pick some keywords. It's actually already done. Like I have this spreadsheet full of like hundreds of topics.
Okay.
So that they just go down. I did that work a long time ago.
Yeah.
They write an outline. I approve the outline. This probably all occurs on Monday. And then once the article is done, I hand it over to my editor. And then on Sunday morning is usually when I just kind of go over the final drafts of those things. On Monday, I film a YouTube video, and I usually publish a podcast on Monday also. And then in terms of getting guests on the podcast, that's variable because it just depends on the other person's schedule, not really mine. But usually I don't do more than one podcast interview a week, sometimes 2. And then Tuesdays, I prepare a lecture for the 2 courses that I run. And that's usually, so first of all, I only work from 8 to maybe like noon or 12:30. That's basically my schedule. Wednesdays, I actually give those classes. Thursday, I work on Bumblebee, whatever needs to be done. And Friday is usually completely free. Friday is like my thinking day where I just kind of plan out like what I want to do in the long run and also for the following week. So that's my weekly schedule.
So Bumblebees, is your wife essentially running all that?
She's running operations. That's correct. That's correct. I do the marketing for it. So all the PPC, SMS, email, and that sort of thing.
But it's just pretty much organic.
No, we run ads. With
Facebook ads too?
We do Facebook ads, Google ads primarily.
Right.
So we did this study a while back where we discovered that all of my Facebook, so our average order value is $60. I would say almost 50% of our customers spend less than half of our average order value. And only 10% of our customers spend more than double our average order value. And we found that most of the cheap people who are spending less than half the AOV were coming from Facebook. And what's ironic about our business is that 10% that spends double, they actually represent almost 50% of our revenue annually, right? So where should we be spending our time? The big guys, right?
Yeah.
And the majority of those guys come from Google because they're searching for something.
Yeah. So it's just leaning into Google. Are you able to scale up Google AdWords at all, or is it just?
Unfortunately, Google is not really easy to scale. We switched over to Performance Max maybe 3 months ago, and it's been doing pretty well actually, but it's not really easy to scale.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's like $5,000 a week is what's going on, and I don't know how to crank.
You spend more than that.
Oh, do you?
For you guys, it's only $5,000 a week.
Yeah.
Huh.
But I'm not an ad guy, so maybe after let's talk about it now. Like,
yeah,
how do you grow Google Ads? How do you take advantage of that? Because our AOVs similar to your AOV, about $60, and I don't know how competitive your space is or not, but
not as competitive as yours for sure.
From what I hear, like Performance Max, you just say sell shit, and then they just.
I know, it sucks. Actually, I hate that because you have no visibility.
Yeah.
So I wish we could talk more about it, to be honest with you. But the way you grow that really is to introduce more products and more keywords, and then you have no idea what's going on. They just tell you what your ROI is.
Yeah.
It's a short conversation. What I can tell you.
I'm paying a consultant for that. I should bring that back in house, huh?
Well, actually, Performance Max really actually requires very little brain power, to be honest with you. I think it required much more the other way. The unfortunate part of it is Performance Max sucks up all of the traffic for your other campaigns. It like steals it. It's like higher priority or something.
Right.
I used to make a higher ROI with my other stuff, but Google actually forces you to go over to Performance Max from Google Shopping.
And then do you set like it returns on that? Is it just like
I do target ROAS.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what's the target ROAS you aim for?
So I have different campaigns. So mostly it's like 3x is what I set it at. Because I know that I can actually market to, so we're actually looking for those event planners with Google.
Yeah.
So the way we do it is we actually look for people who buy abnormally large amount of linens. And chances are those people are event or wedding planners. And they come in through Google. And so we'll reach out to them, via phone, and we say, hey, are you an event planner? We also have a post-purchase survey that just flat out asks, are you a business? And if they are, we reach out to them with a special coupon code. And we say, hey, here's a phone number. Just ask for this person. That's your dedicated rep.
Okay, that's a pretty interesting model. So that's just on the post-purchase. You flag anything over like $200 or $100 or something like that.
It's pretty obvious because most people aren't going to buy like 10 dozen napkins or like, most normal people at least.
Yeah. And then what email software are you using to manage?
Klaviyo.
And then you just have these flows set up. Who's the account rep? It's not your wife then.
Oh, no. We have employees. We have a warehouse. As I mentioned earlier, we just bought our own warehouse.
Yeah.
But we'd been renting for a long time. We have, 3 people and 1 in the Philippines.
Yeah. And they're just handling that.
Yep.
So your lifetime value for those accounts.
Oh, it's very high.
And then with, I guess the question is, can you set like a target AOV for people in Performance Max? Because if you do like a 3x return on ad spend, then it could be, I spend $10 to get the $30 customer. Or, you would much rather spend $60 to get the $180 customer.
Yes, that's a good question. I haven't experimented with that. We try to go for a lot more customers and just hope out of that bunch we'll get someone.
Yeah.
I don't know what would happen. Like, so if we set our, like, I guess our CPA in this case, right? Would it be the CPA? No, what would it be? I haven't experimented with that option.
Yeah, customer
actually.
acquisition cost.
Yeah.
Is that an option?
It is. CPA is an option. But I think it all boils down to the same thing, right? If you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, you're making money every order. Like, I think that's the other thing that's different about you and I versus a lot of other companies is some will try to break even or lose money with that long-term goal. And I assume you're making money on that first order.
Yes, of course. Yes.
So have you ever experimented, I guess maybe in your shooting for 7-figure days, is that when you were trying to break even or?
Yeah, we were even losing money. I just wanted to hit that note. It's stupid. We can focus more on that if you want to make me feel stupid. But
No, I mean, because, we had a very similar experience as you. Like my business partner, fortunately it's not my wife, so it wasn't all encompassing, but we were very much on a different page at a certain period of time where we wanted to pull nothing out of the business for ourselves. And 100% of it went back in the business with the expectation that the business would grow. And then when it grew, we would take more money out of the business once it got to a larger time period. And subsequently, in a sick, twisted fate, the more we did that, the less the company also grew. It was just like,
interesting.
Yeah, misallocating resources, focusing on like too big of ideas, not doing like the little, James Clear, the 1% improvements that grow slowly over time and make a big impact. And eventually, at the time, our company was about $3 million a year of revenue. And we were like, let's screw it. $3 million, 20% profitability, that's $600K. Leave 10% in the business and then $300K for the founders. That's a great life. Like you've won the world's career lottery, making 6 figures, being able to do whatever you want. And we did that and we focused on bottom line and then the company grew. And it was, the whole like profit first mentality is the way to go. And then I forget every 2 years and then I have to remind myself on this.
What's funny about, so we sell different things, obviously. For the longest time, we're in the wedding industry, right? For the longest time, I didn't think we had repeat customers. I know the divorce rate is high, but I don't know if they would get hankies again. But we actually discovered there's a lot of people, well, namely the event planners, but there's actually a lot of people who use handkerchiefs. I didn't even know that. In your case, though, I would imagine people are on subscription stuff. So I would have thought that your model of maybe perhaps breaking even on the front end with ads and getting them on a subscription might be actually worth it in the long run.
Yeah, like up to this point, we've never really focused on subscriptions because me personally, I don't like subscriptions. I think they end up being more hassle than they're worth. That being said, one of our initiatives for the future is going to be more focused on subscriptions and growing that out. And maybe it does change the customer acquisition model. And sometimes I'm, a little too stubborn. And then sometimes I end up getting that confirmation bias. Because different people use it at different rates. Like coffee, to me, is pretty simple. Like you have your 1 cup of coffee a day. You really know how much you're using. Whereas like a bar of soap or shampoo or whatever, like it seems to have more variability between people. And subsequently, they end up with either too much or too little because it's not like a monthly thing. It's more of like a quarterly thing. And I feel like when you're packaged in quarterly containers, then it's less conducive to a subscription model. And then I don't want to do a whole bunch of little tiny 1 month packages for our customers. So
I see what you're saying. I was thinking the opposite, actually. I was thinking for peace of mind, that's like a SaaS business, except it's e-com.
Yeah.
Right.
Then you just got to think about like churn. And once you start getting to a certain number of subscriptions and then let's say you have 1,000 subscribers and you lose, 1% every month or something. So you only have to bring in 1 to break even. But when you have 100,000, then you have to bring in 100. And it's kind of like exponential to be able to stay level. But I guess that's true with any business, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But it just seems a lot more stable to me if you can pull it off. I mean, you don't do your own fulfillment, do you? Do you guys use a...
Yeah, we work with a third party.
Yeah, right. So even those little shipments, as long as they're profitable, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not more work for you guys.
I do think there is some seasonality to our business in terms of like guys grow their beards out, they shave them off, and
True.
that might be a hesitation to getting a subscription. But I don't know. Those are probably just head trash that I got to work through. And that's why we show up every day. And like the business is not boring after 10 years. Like I still have problems to solve. Where can people listen to your podcast?
Just head on over to My Wife Quit Her Job.
And YouTube.
Oh, YouTube. Yeah. My Wife Quit Her Job also.
Yeah. You just passed 100,000. Congrats on.
I did. It took forever. It took me like 2.5 years to do it, but it felt good.
That is not a long period of time to get to 100,000 subscribers.
You don't think so? 2.5 years?
No.
I look at your channel with millions of people. I mean,
yeah, but
I'm still a far cry from the beard brand,
Yeah, but I mean, again, this is a testament. Most people are not willing to grind for that length of time to be able to find the success. They give it a couple of months and then they give up. But YouTube is one of those things where if you stick to it, you will achieve those. You will find the videos that kind of hit the algorithm right and they kind of explode on their own. And I bet you the first time one of your videos did that was pretty thrilling.
Oh, it felt pretty good. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I think what you just said applies to any business. Like, I feel like if you stuck with anything for like 3 to 5 years, I think you can make anything work.
Yeah. I've said this before, but one of my skill sets is I'm willing to suffer longer than the average person.
That's my skill set too. Maybe that's why we're friends. We suffer hanging out with each other.
Unfortunately for my wife, she can suffer even longer. So that's why we're 16 years married. All right, Steve, this has been another e-commerce conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. And then Steve will be back on to talk about his book and living the family life business, building a family life business.
Family first business.
Family first business.
It's because a lot of people, they start family second or third businesses is what I've discovered over the years.
Yeah. Well, that'll be fun. Can't wait to bring it back on. As always, thanks for listening. Cheers. And keep on growing.